The relentless sun bore down on the small town of Red Creek, a dusty, forgotten settlement on the edge of the Wyoming frontier. Wooden buildings leaned against each other like weary travelers seeking shelter. The wind carried the scent of hay, horses, and the faint tang of gunpowder from distant gunfights that seemed to linger like ghosts. In the middle of town, a modest home with peeling white paint held a secret. A young woman named Clara Whitmore, whose life was about to be shattered in a way she could never imagine. Clara stood by the window, her slender fingers gripping the sill. Her dark hair was streaked with dust from the unrelenting sun, and her deep hazel eyes were pools of sorrow. She was 23, beautiful in a quiet way, with high cheekbones and a soft, solemn smile that had been dulled by years of disappointment. Her parents, proud yet cruel, had judged her not by the kindness in her heart, but by her failure to bear a child. In their eyes, she was nothing but a liability, a burden on their failing farm. The town was abuzz with the news. "She's barren." "That one," whispered Mrs. Hargrove at the general store. "So her parents are selling her to the highest bidder." Children ran past, kicking up dust in their wake, oblivious to the cruel auction that would decide Clara's future. Clara's mother, a stern woman with hands hardened by years of labor, entered the room. Her eyes, cold as the winter wind that swept through the plains, met Clara's. "You'll leave at sunset," she said without preamble. "A man from the north is willing to pay handsomely for you. Do not resist. It's for your own good, and ours." Clara's heart clenched. Tears threatened to spill, but she forced them back. She had always known the world was harsh, but this betrayal cut deeper than any whip or winter storm. She turned to leave the house, her skirts catching on the rough wooden floors, and stepped into a destiny she had not chosen. The auction was held on the outskirts of town, near the corral where the horses pawed at the earth, restless and impatient. A crowd gathered, men with sun-browned faces and calloused hands, some curious, some cruel, some desperate. Clara stood on a platform, her hands trembling, the wind tugging at her hair. Her stomach knotted with fear and shame as voices shouted, offers haggling over her like she were livestock. Then, amidst the chaos, a rider appeared on the horizon. His horse galloped like the wind, kicking up a trail of dust. The man atop the horse was tall, broad-shouldered, with a rugged face shadowed by a wide-brimmed hat. His eyes, a piercing shade of gray, scanned the crowd with a calm intensity that silenced whispers. This was Nathaniel Kane, a lonely rancher known throughout the territory for his kindness and for his unyielding solitude. Nathaniel dismounted with the grace of a man used to commanding respect without demanding it. He strode to the platform, his boots stirring the dust, and looked at Clara with a mixture of curiosity and something softer, something human. "I'll take her," he said simply, his voice low but carrying over the murmurs of the crowd. Clara's heart skipped. His offer was not the highest, but it carried an honesty and dignity that the others lacked. Her parents, eager for coin, accepted without hesitation. Nathaniel led her to his horse, bowing slightly as he offered his hand. She took it, tentative, and felt a spark of hope flicker in her chest, a fragile flame in a world gone cold. The journey to Nathaniel's ranch was long and silent, the open plains stretching endlessly in all directions. Clara clung to the edge of her fear, unsure if this man was a savior or just another in a long line of cruel fate. But Nathaniel did not speak of gold or ownership. Instead, he asked her about the land, the animals, the sky. Slowly, like water carving stone, his gentle questions chipped away at the walls she had built around her heart. The ranch itself was isolated, a sprawling expanse of fields and barns, with mountains rising like silent sentinels in the distance. Nathaniel's home was modest but warm, with a fire that crackled like a heartbeat in the main room. Clara wandered through the house, touching the rough wooden tables, the quilts stitched with care, and felt a strange sense of belonging she had never known. Days turned into weeks. Nathaniel proved a man of patience and quiet strength. He treated Clara as a partner, not property, teaching her to ride, to tend to the cattle, to handle the hardships of frontier life. She began to smile again, her laughter tentative at first, then growing stronger, echoing across the fields like a song. Yet despite the growing warmth between them, Clara's past clung to her like a shadow. She feared she would never be truly loved, her barrenness a barrier that could not be breached. Nathaniel, sensing her inner turmoil, never pressed, never questioned. He simply shared the land, the work, the silence, and eventually the nights under a sky so vast it made her feel both small and infinite. One stormy evening, as lightning split the sky and rain hammered the roof, Clara stood at the edge of the barn, watching the tempest. Her fears, her sorrow, her anger at a world that had betrayed her surged like the wind. Nathaniel approached, placing a steadying hand on her shoulder. "You are not broken," he said, his voice barely audible over the roar of the storm. "You are alive, you are strong, and you are worthy of love." Tears streamed down Clara's face, washing away months of grief. She turned to him, their eyes locking, and in that gaze, they found something neither had dared to hope for: trust, understanding, and the first stirrings of love. Nathaniel leaned closer, brushing a strand of wet hair from her face, and there, lips met in a kiss that was tender and fierce all at once, a promise that the past could not touch. Time passed, and the ranch flourished. Clara and Nathaniel built a life together, one rooted in respect, shared toil, and unspoken devotion. Though she remained barren, the emptiness she had feared was filled by the bond she shared with Nathaniel, a connection deeper than blood or circumstance. She discovered a power she had never known, the power to choose her own destiny, to be seen as a person, not a commodity. Then, one crisp autumn morning, as the first golden leaves fell like rain from the cottonwoods lining the ranch, Nathaniel took Clara's hand and led her to a hill overlooking the valley. "We may not have a child," he said softly, "but we have each other. And this," he gestured to the land, the sky, the sprawling ranch below, "is our family, our life." Clara's heart swelled with love and gratitude. She realized that the world had tried to define her worth by something she could not control, but Nathaniel had seen her true value. In his eyes, she was complete, cherished, and irreplaceable. And as they stood together, the wind carrying their laughter across the plains, Clara knew that she was finally home. In the end, it was not the gold or the judgments of others that mattered. It was the quiet strength of a man who understood her, the enduring beauty of the land, and the courage to love despite fear. Clara's story was one of sorrow transformed into hope, of betrayal softened by compassion, and of a lonely rancher who saw a woman's heart and chose to make it his own. And so, under the wide, endless sky of the Wild West, Clara and Nathaniel lived, not defined by the mistakes of the past, but by the love they had carved out of dust, storms, and endless horizons. Their lives became a testament to the truth that even in the harshest lands, love could bloom fierce and unyielding like the prairie flowers that survived the storm.